Hi friends, my name is Baji. Welcome to our channel. In today's video, we will cover first program Welcome to Groovy. Before we discussing anything in detail about this program, we will see an example of Java program and different components involved in that Java program. And then we'll try to compare that program with Groovy program. After that, we will talk about the concept of comments and different ways to comment any statements in Groovy. And then we will continue our discussion towards the topic of keyword and see what are all different available keywords in Groovy. And then we will discuss the fundamental programming concept, that is variable. We will see a real-time example to understand this concept in a simpler way. And then finally, we will end this video with the data types topic. We will see what are all the different data types available and how to declare variables using these data types. If you are watching this performance testing must-have skill series for the first time, please watch the previous videos first and then continue this video. You can find the link to this playlist series in the description. So without any further delay, let's get started. Let's discuss the first program, Welcome to Groovy. So to write any program in Groovy, we need either an integrated development environment or Groovy console. In our last tutorial, I have demonstrated how to set up Groovy in Windows as well as Mac operating system. Moving forward, I will demonstrate all the tutorials in Mac operating system. Don't get confused with the Mac operating system screens as well as Windows. So the process is pretty much similar. If there are any major differences, I'll try to highlight at that point in time. Okay, so we have installed Visual Studio Code as an IDE in our previous tutorial. Let's open that and then start writing the program. To open Visual Studio Code in Mac operating system, there are multiple ways you can do that. The simpler way that many people will do is by opening the Spotlight search and typing the Visual Studio Code. So it will open the Visual Studio Code application. Just double click that and then we can see the Visual Studio Code UI. If it is in window, you can click on the Windows icon in the taskbar and then look for Visual Studio Code application and then open it. Once you open the Visual Studio Code application, the next step we need to do is we need to go to Explorer. So just click on the Explorer. If you are opening for the first time, it will ask you to open a folder or clone a repository or create a Java project. In our last tutorial, I have shown you how to create a folder on the desktop. So it's not necessary that you have to create a folder on desktop. You can create anywhere, but try to open the same folder. Let's click on the open folder. And in my case, I'm going to desktop because I have created the folder called Groovy tutorials on desktop. So I'm just selecting that Groovy tutorials folder, opening it. Since we don't have any files inside the Groovy tutorials, it is showing as empty. So let's create a new file. To create a file, just click on this icon called new file and then give a name. So it can be anything. Since it is a part 3 tutorial, so I'm just giving groovy-part3.groovy. Groovy files always ends with .groovy extension. So make sure that you are giving .groovy at the end. Once you create the files, it will show you the empty window where we can start writing the code. Like I said in the intro, let's discuss quickly sample program in Java and we will try to achieve the same output using Groovy and then we can see the differences. This way we can understand how much easy to write programs in Groovy in comparison with Java. So let me quickly write the Java program and then I'll try to explain each component inside that program. So I'm just making a comment called Java program and then writing the class definition. I'm calling this as hello Groovy and then writing the main method. Don't worry, I will try to explain all these statements if you are new to Java. So I'm done with writing the sample program. The objective of the program is to display welcome to Groovy on the screen. So let's try to execute this program. To execute any programs in Groovy, we need to execute them in terminal. There is another shortcut available to execute any programs in Groovy. I'll show you that later on, but now try to make the habit of executing them in terminal. So to open a terminal, we need to go to terminal and then click new terminal. So there is a shortcut key also available. You can use the shortcuts to do things fast. So let's click new terminal. Since in my case it is already open, so I'm not clicking new terminal. In the terminal, type Groovy and then file name. So to execute any script in Groovy, we have to always start with Groovy and then the file name. Even though this is a Java program, it has been written inside the Groovy script. So that is why I'm using Groovy utility to execute it. Groovy and then file name groovy-part3.groovy. So it successfully executed that script and then it displays the output welcome to Groovy. So that is what we are trying to achieve with this program. So now let's discuss what are all these statements. In Java, every application begins with class definition. So in line number 3, I have defined the class. So the public is an access modifier which describes how this class can be accessed. So if you are in a Java project, when you say public, anyone can access this class. And all class definitions should have class keyword and then the class name. So here the class name is hello Groovy. After the class name, we have open parenthesis and then closing parenthesis. So whatever the code that is written inside this parenthesis belongs to this particular class. In line number 4, we have main method definition. So in Java, every application must contain this main method because the Java compiler starts executing the code from this main method. You can say that main method is the entry point for your application and it is mandatory in any Java program. Here also we have an access modifier called public. So we are telling that this method can be accessed by anyone within that project, and then the keyword static. So in Java, if you want to access any methods inside a class, you need to create an object to that class. Then only you can access those methods. Main is a special method because this will be invoked by the Java compiler at the start of the program. It is not possible to create any objects. That is why it is always defined as static. And the next keyword is void. Void means nothing. So in Java or any application, function will return either something or it will not return anything. So if you say void, that means you are telling to the compiler that this function will not return anything. And the next one is the name of the method. Here in this case it is main, and within the brackets we are passing some parameters. So we are saying that array of string args. That means when someone is executing this Java program, they have an option to pass some command line arguments to this program, so that those arguments can be used inside this method. And then again here also we have opening parenthesis and then closing parenthesis. So any code written inside these parentheses will be considered as part of this main method. So in our case we have only one line of statement, so which is system.out.println. If you want to display the output to the screen, then in Java we will use system.out.println, and within the brackets we will specify the text that we want to display. Here in this case it is welcome to Groovy. In Java every statement ends with semicolon, so we have to specify semicolon. I hope you understand the sample program. In case anything is not clear, please mention it in the comment section. Now let's look at how we will write the same thing in Groovy. So let's write the same program in Groovy. To display the same message to output, we just need to write println. So let's try to execute the same program and see whether we are getting the output. So I'm just using the same command, groovy space groovy -part3.groovy. In Groovy, it is not really necessary to have a class or the main method. Just remember one thing, that when we are writing Groovy scripts, the code is not enclosed in a class, but it doesn't mean that there is no class. Okay. In Groovy, we can print the line without using round brackets. For example, in Java, we have used these round brackets, right? In Groovy, we don't need to mention those brackets. And in Java, every statement should end with semicolon. In Groovy, that is not the case. So we can write statements, we can end the statements without semicolon. In Groovy, we can use single quotation as well to surround the text. For example, println welcome to Groovy. We can also write this way. So let's try to execute the same program. So we got the output welcome to Groovy, because we have multiple print statements. And then in Groovy, we can also print using print statement instead of println welcome to Groovy. So this will also do the same thing. It will display the welcome to Groovy output. So let's execute the same program again. See, we have 3 welcome to Groovies because we have given 3 print statements. So the main difference between print and println is println will print the text in a separate line, and then print will try to print the text in the same line. So ln means new line. Okay, now let's open the Groovy console and try to understand that behind the scenes what will happen when we execute the Groovy script code. Because I said that in Groovy script we are not enclosing the code into a class, right? But it doesn't mean that there is no class. So just try to understand that concept using Groovy console. So to open Groovy console, from terminal you can type Groovy console and then press enter. For Windows you can do the same thing from the command prompt. Once you hit enter, it will open a Groovy console window. So here we can type the code. So let's try to write the same line of code, println welcome to Groovy, and then you can run the script by clicking this execute button, or even you can go to script and then run. Once you run that script, it will display the output as welcome to Groovy. That is what we are expecting, but we can see behind the scenes what exactly that Groovy is doing to execute this line of text. So to see that, go to script menu and then click on inspect AST. AST is nothing but abstract syntax tree. It is a tree representation of the source code. That means whatever the code that we are writing in the Groovy console, it will provide a tree representation. So you can see everything. So if you carefully observe here, it has a main class with the class name script with some number. So this is the class. In Java also the program begins with a class, right? So here in Groovy also it begins with a class. The class name is script some number, and then it has couple of methods inside. These are called constructors, and then there is another method called main. So if you remember in the Java sample program, we have written exactly the same method definition, right? The main method definition, public static void main. So here also it has the same method with the same parameter string arg. And then inside that method, it is calling another method called run script, which is the run method. In that run method, we have that print statement, welcome to Groovy. So if we write print welcome to Groovy, behind the scenes, Groovy is doing all this code creation for us and then executing that and displaying the output in the output window. I hope it is clear to you. In case anything is not clear, please mention it in the comment section. Now let's move on to our next topic, comments. Basically, a comment is nothing but a note that gives some explanation about the code. We can use these comments for methods, classes, or any logic. It is always recommended to keep some comments in the code so that in future, if we are coming back to that piece of code, we will understand why that logic has been written at that point in time. Okay. In Groovy, we can write comments in 4 different ways. So let's look at them now. So the first type of comment is single line comment. Single line comment starts with 2 forward slashes and it can be found in any position of the text. So whatever the text after the 2 forward slashes will be considered as a comment, and compiler will not execute that piece of code. It will simply skip that line. You can write at the end of the statement as well. For example, print welcome to Groovy, and then you can add the purpose of this statement, printing welcome to Groovy message. If you want to write some notes about any particular statements, it is better to use single line comments, so you can write it on the same line. If you want to write some comments about a particular statements, you can use the single line comments. The second type of comment is multi-line comment. The syntax for writing multi-line comment is you always starts with forward slash asterisk and ends with star forward slash. Anything written in between these 2 stars will be considered as comment. So you can write any type of text. For example, you can write a standalone multi-line comment. Another thing about multi-line comment is even you can write the comment in multiple lines. So you can type anything in multiple lines, and anything between forward slash asterisk and asterisk forward slash will be considered as a comment. Even if you want to include line number 6 part of multi-line comment, you just need to take out this piece and start from here. So the entire thing will be considered as multi-line comment. The next type of comment is Groovy doc comment. It is also similar to multi-line comment. The only difference is the Groovy doc comment always starts with forward slash double star and ends with star forward slash. So anything written in between these 2 characters will be considered as comment. In Groovy, the Groovy doc comments generally will be used for type definitions, for classes, interfaces, or for fields and properties definitions or method definitions. Okay, this Groovy doc comment generally will be used by the developers. The next and final type of comment is shebang line comment. Whenever we are trying to execute Groovy scripts in Unix system, so this shebang line comment is the first line of the code. The syntax for this shebang line comment is pound exclamation space slash user slash bin slash env space Groovy. When you write this shebang line comment in Groovy scripts and when you try to execute this Unix system, then Unix system will understand this is a Groovy script and it will execute all the code accordingly. Let's move on to our next topic, keywords. Keywords have a predefined meaning in the language, and because of this we cannot use them for naming variables, methods, classes, etc. Let's quickly go to the Apache public documentation and then see what are all the keywords that Groovy has. So open Chrome browser, type Apache Groovy, go to https://groovy-lang.org. This is the Apache Groovy official website, and then go to documentation, click on the syntax, and on the left hand side click on the keywords. So these are all the keywords in Groovy. So we cannot use any of these words for naming variables or method definitions or classes. For example, you cannot create a variable called case, or you cannot create a function or method called continue, right? Because this continue has a special meaning and it is a reserved word in Groovy. And this keywords concept is there in every language, whether it is Groovy, Java. Every language has set of keywords that are reserved for specific purposes. We cannot use them for naming variables, methods, or classes. Our next topic, variables. Let's try to understand the concept of variables with a real-time example. Let's say you are shifting to a new home and all your belongings are stored in a storage room. So you wanted to pack them properly so that you can easily move these things from old home to new home. So what would be your next step? Basically, you will go to a shop and buy so many empty boxes and then try to store similar kind of items into one box and then label that box properly. So this way, once you move to new home, you can easily access those items. Once you are done with the packing, mostly your things will look like this. Similarly, computer memory is also like a big storage room. You cannot dump entire data into that storage room. it will be very difficult to access that data later stage. So that is why you need to organize the data properly. A variable works in the same way as the box. Like a box, variables can hold a variety of categories. In programming terms, these things are called as data types. A variable data type is determined the type of data that variable can hold. In programming, we will generally first declare its data type and then its name, and after that a value will be assigned. This is because the variable declaration will help us to determine what type of value can be stored inside that box. We can only store the values of that data type. This is the common behavior for most of the languages, and it is always important to name them something meaningful so that we can easily identify the use of variable later on our program. For example, we have a box called name. Inside that box, we can store any name like John, Mary, anything. I hope you understand the concept of variable. Let me know in the comment section if anything is not clear. So let's move on to our final topic, data type. Data type denotes what kind of data that variable holds. It can be a string, character, boolean, integer, anything. Groovy has several built-in data types. Let's quickly look at each of them. The first data type is number. Numbers can be integers like whole number or decimals like floating point values. We have different number data types available in Groovy like byte, short, int, long, float, double. If you want to define a variable with byte number data type, then you can say byte b equal to some value like 2, and then if you want to define short value, you can say short s equal to 3, and if you want to define some integer I equal to maybe 10. If you want to define a long value, long l equal to something like that. And then if you want to define a float, since float is a decimal value, so we can define a decimal value here, and double d equal to some decimal number. So the main difference between these data types is the amount of data that they can hold. For example, if you want to store a large number, maybe you can prefer long instead of int, or if you want to store a large decimal value, you can prefer double instead of float. Let's try to print all of the values inside these variables. So we can use our print ln statement. So let's execute this program. So how to execute the program? We have to use Groovy keyword and then the file name. What is the file name? Groovy part 3 Groovy. So if you execute, it will try to print all the values inside those variables. For example, b holds number 2, so it prints 2, and s holds number 3. In the second statement, it prints yes. Similarly, it prints all the values in those variables. So these are different number data types. So the next data type is string. Strings basically used to give some text values to variables. It can be either a single character or block of characters. For example, you can define single character like char c equal to a. Since it is a text, we should surround this with either single quote or double quotes. If it is a single character, we always surround that character with single quotes. If it is block of text, then we will use double quotations. Let's say if you want to store string, so string str equal to this is a string. Again, if you want to print these variables, you can use the print ln statement, print ln c, print ln str. Let's execute the program again. You see the c has character a and str has this is a string. In strings, we have a concept called string interpolation. Basically, it allows us to include variables or expressions within a string. We can include variables or expressions with dynamic content without concatenating strings and variables manually. There are different ways to concatenate strings and variables, and string interpolation is one among them. First, try to understand the string interpolation, and then we'll see the other way as well. Okay. So let's say you have declared a variable called age with data type int, which holds 28. So your intention is to print a statement like this your age is 28. If you execute this program, it will definitely work as expected because you already hard coded the age in this string. But what will happen if the age change? Then your program will not work as expected because it always try to print the 28. You don't want to hard coded your age in that string. Instead, you wanted to use your variable age. So if you use the variable age within the string like this, let's see what will happen. It will just consider that variable as a normal text because it is surrounded within the double quotation. So if you want to evaluate the value of that variable within the string, then you need to use the string interpolation concept. So in such situations, instead of directly writing like age, we can use this syntax. So dollar flower brackets, and within that flower brackets, we will use the variable name. Let's try to execute the program now and see what will happen. So now you are getting age 28. Let's say if you change the age to 29 and then try to re-execute the program. So it is giving you the right output, correct? So the string interpolation concept is not just meant for variables. You can also do some expressions, like you can add multiple numbers as well. For example, if you want to add two numbers, the sum of 10 and 5 is, you can put that expression inside this flower brackets. Let's see what is the output. The sum of 10 and 5 is 15. So using the string interpolation concept, you can also evaluate the expressions. So we can also achieve the same thing in another way. Instead of using string interpolation, you can concatenate the variable with the string. For example, if you want to print this age statement, you can rewrite the same statement like this: println your age within double quotation plus an age variable. If you run the program, you will get the same thing. Since I have println in line 33 as well as line 37, that is why it is printing twice. I hope you understand string interpolation as well as how to concatenate the strings. So let's move on to our final data type, Boolean. Like numbers and strings, Boolean is also another data type. It is a special data type and we can assign only two values to Boolean variables, either true or false. If you want to assign a true value into a variable, you can define that as Boolean data type. Similarly, if you want to store a false value, you can define that using Boolean data type. Variable declaration and assigning for Boolean data type is also pretty similar like strings and numbers. So let's say you want to store true in variable t. So you can define Boolean t equal to true. Again, if you want to store Boolean f equal to false, so you are trying to store true in t and false in f. So let's try to print out the values inside t and f. So let's say print ln t, print ln f. So it will print out the 12 values inside those t and f. So let's try to execute the program. It printed true and false because t holds true Boolean value and f holds false value. During our introductory video, I have mentioned that Groovy is optionally typed as well as dynamically typed. So far, the approach of defining variable that we have used is optional typing. That means it is mandatory to assign a data type to a variable name. The second approach, which is dynamic typing, the assigning data type is optional. So how do we define variable using dynamic typing? In Groovy, we have a keyword called def. Using that def keyword, we can define variable and store some value in it. It can be anything. For example, you can say I equal to 10 and print ln I. And then you can store I equal to hello, print ln I. So all these statements are absolutely correct. We can very well do this way as well. So let's try to execute this program. Groovy part 3 Groovy. In the line number 50, it holds an integer number. We did not change the I data type as string. We directly store the text into I. So Groovy accepted that assignment and then it prints I in line number 52. But in Java, which is a statically type, this kind of assignment is not acceptable. So we need to define the type of data that variable holds before assigning it, so that the compiler will understand what type of data it can allow to hold. But with dynamic typing, we don't need to do that way. We can simply use def keyword to define a variable and store anything inside it. For example, you are interested to know what type of data that I hold. So what you can do is, there is a method called getClass. You can use that getClass method to print the type of data that it holds instead of the actual value. So let's try to execute. So it is telling us that this I is holding string data type. If you copy the same statement before we assign the hello word to I, then let's see what will happen. So in line number 51, it is telling that I holds integer because in line number 49, we have assigned number 10 to I, right? And then in line 53, we have changed that assignment back to a string. So that is why in line 56, it is telling that it holds a string value. Like Java, you don't need to remember different data types like byte, integer, long, boolean, string, character. You simply use def keyword and define the variable and store any value in it. I hope the concept is clear. Let me know in case anything is not clear. Before wrapping this concept, just wanted to highlight that Groovy is case sensitive. So you need to be very careful when you are defining and using those variables. For example, x equal to 10 and x equal to 20. Even though x is same, but from Groovy perspective, these are two different variables because in line number 58, x is in small letters and 59 it is uppercase letter. So if you have two variables with the same name but with different case, then Groovy will consider those two as a separate variables. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for staying till the end. I hope that was informative and you understood all the concept explained in this video. In case any specific concept is not clear or require more detailed information, please feel free to mention it in the comment section. If you are new to our channel, please consider subscribing it, and if any of your friends interested in learning performance testing, please share this series link to them so that they learn all the concept for free and get benefited. I'll see you with our next video in this module. Until then, take care, stay safe and keep learning.